Welcome to Think Bigger Voices, hosted by Jennie Treby and co-produced by Tony DiBenedetto. We're on a mission to break the cycle of poverty for kids in America by inspiring education, advocacy, and action in our communities. We'll tackle big subjects, talk to the experts, and promote the solutions making an impact. Join us if you believe that every kid deserves the opportunity to think bigger.
Welcome to Think Bigger Voices. I'm Jennie Treby. We're on the road in the greater Washington, D.C. area, talking with people doing some incredible things with kids. Our guest is a teacher, and his mantra is that education is not a job, but a vocation and a mission. Welcome, Morrise Quierolo. Quierolo.
Yeah. That's why I go by Mr. Q. It's a tough one.
Welcome, Mr. Q.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Morrise, you are an educator at Liberty Middle School here in Fairfax County.
Yes, ma'am.
You teach civics and AVID. And I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about your school and also what the AVID program is.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love my school. One of the things I love about it is it's one of the most diverse schools in Virginia. We also have a tremendous leadership. That's what I learned in my first 2 years is really have the same principles. And our leadership is all about the students first. What I love about AVID is, and we take our own little slant at Liberty, where we kind of make it more about leadership, but at its core, to me, it's about empowerment and making sure that students have the resources and the support they need to reach their potential and accomplish their dreams. So we'll help them prepare for higher level reading and writing in high school, and we'll also expose them to different careers and different ideas about colleges, field trips, really enrichment activities.
So AVID is a national program, right? So what is it really geared toward?
College and career readiness.
Okay.
It's been around for, I think, over 50 years. It's a very well-known program, but it's nothing that amazing educators aren't doing across the country. It really is a collection of best practices that they try to formalize and systematize across the entire school.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. So Liberty, you said, has a pretty diverse population. You said with kids from all over the world. What is that like?
It's amazing. Number one, it can be very humbling because you hear students' different stories, some exciting, some tough, but it always makes you think. It expands your perspective. I feel incredibly gracious and I feel a lot of gratitude for those students because they teach me so much, and it also has helped me kind of think about my own situation and recognize how lucky I've been.
You didn't set out to be a teacher. When we talked earlier, you thought you might become an attorney.
Yes.
How did you become a teacher? How did you make that jump?
Yeah, I would have never in a million years imagined it. And if there's any young people out there listening who might want to be teachers, I am so glad that I made this jump. And to the chagrin of my mother, she really wanted me to go down the law school route. But when I was going from out of college, I wasn't feeling that drive. I wanted a little bit of an adventure at that age. So I joined this place called Teach for America. And they took me all the way across the country, and it unlocked something in me that I never would have thought was possible.
So tell us where you went and what that was like.
So I went to Phoenix, and it was a whirlwind. My first year teaching was COVID, so not the most ideal time to start.
A new teacher in COVID, that's in a different city.
That was tough. And then and then shortly after COVID hit, I had torn my Achilles, so I lost my ability to be able to actually walk and drive places. So that was an additional challenge that I had to face when I was there. But I'll tell you a quick story about that Achilles tear since we were just talking about it. Because this was really one of the moments I realized this is more than just a job to me and more of a vocation, more of a mission. I've already had an ACL tear, so I know when there's a bad injury, I know what that means. And as soon as it tore, I knew immediately, this is bad. This is going to take a long time. And it was hard. And I remember being at the hospital, and I remember being very down. I was across the country, didn't have any support system, no family, no friends there. And I immediately knew the only place I wanted to be was back at school. And that night we had a dance that I was scheduled to chaperone. And I was thinking, should I go to the dance or should I just go home and rest my leg? And it was such an easy decision. I wanted to be around the students. I wanted to see them celebrate all their successes. And that's when I realized that this is so much more than just a job. It's rooted in the most human of relationships. Everyone there was supportive of me. I got a ride home from some friends.
Nice.
And it really, education can really, and this is what I love so much about it, can feel like a family.
Oh, that's incredible. So tell us about, though, your experience in Phoenix. You were in a pretty challenged environment there in terms of everybody most of the kids were financially disadvantaged, right? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. It was. So that's part of Teach for America. And I think there's pros and cons to everything. They take inexperienced teachers and put them in some of the tougher situations. But also, if I wasn't there, no one else might be there. And it was very challenging to adjust, because I grew up with a lot of privilege, and I wasn't quite used to it. But through that, I again feel so gracious that I was able to learn from these students, see how hard they were willing to work, how dedicated they were. I mean, a lot of these kids would work after school. And this is what I try to impart to some of my students here in Fairfax, is not everyone has the amazing resources that we have in Fairfax County. We didn't have a library.
No library?
No library at all. There was a shelf with some books on it. I remember on multiple occasions walking into the back of the school, and I was often the first one in because I didn't want to mess this really important job up when I first started. And there would be a homeless guy out there on the front porch of the school.
Of the school.
Right.
Wow.
And we would usually go in, grab him some water and some snacks, and he would be on his way. But again, you're not seeing that in Fairfax County. There would sometimes be shots down the road, and we'd have to lock down. There were students who, especially during COVID, were living with their extended family members, and faced a lot of challenge, but they never gave up, and they always came with a smile on their face. And I feel so grateful to have had those opportunities with them.
So you think that it was that experience in Phoenix that kind of sealed the deal for you? Like, yes, I am a teacher. This is what I'm going to be. This is who I am.
Yeah, it did. And I'll tell you a particular moment where the deal was sealed, because it's a 2-year contract. Law school was very much at the forefront of my mind and my mother's. And that decision point was coming. I was a couple months away. And am I going to continue to teach, or am I just going to go back to the original plan? And if I'm being honest with you, though I had an amazing experience there, I loved the challenge. I loved the students. I loved my coworkers. I was probably going to go back to law school. I was leaning in that direction because I've always thought about it for so long. But then I got a letter that really changed things for me. And it was, I think, literally the second to last day of school. And it meant I must have been 23 or 24 years old. And it was this girl I had worked with who, she struggled academically. The skill sets she had weren't honored by the traditional education system. And I came to learn that her father was incarcerated. And this is something I did not know the entire time I was teaching her. And she wrote a very long letter to me at the end of the year. And it even gets me a little bit emotional now to think about it, because at the age of 23 or 24, the thought that I could have this impact on somebody was truly humbling. And she had wrote to me about how I was a father figure to her, how she appreciated that I had never given up on her. I always tried to help her with the work as much as possible. And she did grow, and that growth is success. And I always tried to remind her of that. And I think what I realized in that moment was just how human this work is, and how good it feels to be a part of someone else's journey and someone else's growth. And it was at that moment where I might not have said, oh, I'm going to stay in this forever, but I said, I at least have to do it one more year. And then every year you get more of those experiences, until eventually I said, all right, this is it.
I'm not going to law
There's
school.
Definitely nowhere else I can go but here.
How did you get back to Fairfax County?
After COVID, we were all, I'm sure, very reflective, and I had really missed my family. Both my parents had gotten COVID. There's no one who's closer to me in the whole world than my parents. So, and my sister, she's giving birth this summer. I just wanted to be back with family, and I wanted to come back to the community that I had felt had really invested in me. I grew up in Fairfax County and then moved out to Loudoun County. And if you don't mind, I'll tell you a quick story about how Fairfax County and educators in it empowered me to be the person I am today. It was in high school. I had torn my ACL, and that was my whole identity at the time. I was an athlete. And
what did you play?
I was football, and it was opening kickoff too. So I had to watch the rest of the game while on the sideline. And that was my first major injury.
That's a terrible injury.
Yeah, and I had nothing before, not a sprained ankle, not a broken finger, nothing before that. So it was really hard. I was 15 or 16 years old. That was my whole identity was wrapped up into being an athlete. And so I had to ask myself, who am I after that? And luckily I had just such amazing support system with my mom and with different teachers at school where they pushed me. Well, so how about you try to do something good out of this unfortunate situation? And I eventually realized sports meant a lot to me. Not every kid in my area gets to do these types of activities. Let me collect some sports equipment and hand them out to people in the community that can use them more than me. And one thing led to the next, and a teacher at my school had a daughter who worked in the Peace Corps, and she was able to get the stuff I donated into a refugee camp in Africa. And I was 16 years old at the time.
No way.
And it was a truly life-changing experience for me. And what truly changed it was the pictures they sent me. I wasn't expecting them. I got them in my email one day, and seeing faces of kids who I was able to impact in any way, big or small, across the world was a very eye-opening experience for a young 16-year-old. It made me realize that I have the power, not when I'm an adult or when I learn more, but I have the power right now to make change. And that's what I always am trying to instill in my students is you don't have to wait to be a change maker. You can be that change maker right now. And because of that gift that I was given, I felt very natural to come back here and to spread that to other
come
students.
Home. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've always had a heart for service, even when you maybe didn't realize it.
Yeah, and that's all my parents. They instilled that at a very young age.
You've got an awesome mom and dad. So you're an educator, and you're currently on track to become a school administrator. So what does that look like for you?
So I'll get my certification in August. So I'll be able to apply to assistant principal jobs. And then 3 years after that, I can apply to be a principal. It's always been for me about trying to extend that impact. So I always told myself if I could be a strong leader in the classroom, I'll try to lead a team. If I can be a strong team leader, I'll try to be a department chair. If I was a good department chair, I'll try to go up to the next level. And as long as I feel like I'm making the impact that I'm striving to make, then we're going to keep trying to go up as high as we can. But principal, what I love about it is you're not just supporting students, but you're empowering teachers because they're the greatest asset in that classroom.
And so your experience so far with it's been pretty good.
Oh, yeah. I'm back. I went to William & Mary for undergrad, so I'm back with them now with this program. So it's fun to be back with the tribe.
Oh, that's neat. Morrise, I wanted to talk to you about Think Big for Kids, because you have kind of been there firsthand at Liberty when we've had some of our career showcases and companies coming in. What have been your observations so far with having that element brought into the school?
Well, first of all, we're very grateful because these opportunities don't come around very often. And I think one of the biggest pieces of the pie that's missing is that relationship with the businesses. My principle is it really does take a village, and that's a piece of our village that's been missing for a long time. So I think it was a great starting point, and it's a place that we can now build off of, and there's just endless opportunities. When we first came in, we had people coming in and doing workshops. I've planned with the different businesses on how can we make this student friendly, engaging, and that collaborative process has been really special. And I hope we continue that. And then also we've been able to do field trips, which is one of the trickiest things to do because it costs money. There's the logistics involved in it. You got to get kids to turn in the parent permission slips, but getting the Think Big has helped fund some of those trips for us. And because of that, we've been able to provide opportunities to students we've never been able to do before. We've been to Commander's Field, and they got to speak to C-level executives from the Commander's organization. We brought them to a local food bank to show how do you really impact your community for the better. And we brought them to an engineering company so they can learn how to solve problems in unique and different ways. None of those things would have been possible without Think Big.
Oh, that's really neat to hear. in terms of the career showcases, what types of industries and companies have come in to work with the kids?
I think this is one of the coolest parts of it is there's no real like theme. It's all different types. And I think that's exactly what the kids need, is to get the curtain pulled back a little bit and to see that there's more than just being a famous athlete or a famous singer, and that even within those industries, you can do a lot of different things. I know we've had robotics come, we had Microsoft come and they built little robots. On the second to last day of school, we had kids like programming spaceships, these little model spaceships. We had Trilogy Sound Studios come in and create a song with our students.
Where we are today.
Yes.
And Thank you, Trilogy.
Thank you, guys. Created an amazing song with the students. We've had them build their own Chick-fil-A. We've had them create an itinerary for a nursing home. I mean, it's just so diverse. And I think that really supports the kids' natural curiosity at this age.
Yeah. And in terms of Think Big, we start early. We start with the kids in middle school because our belief is that they are still open to so many possibilities. And also, it's a vulnerable age. So to get them thinking about what is my future like, where am I going to go? What are the opportunities available to me?
Right. And I think with that vulnerability is you have a tremendous opportunity to plant seeds that will grow. And I would even argue, and I'm sure we might talk about it later, I think elementary school is a great place to start too. And that's what I love about Think Big for Kids. They're getting kids to think about the real world in ways that sometimes with the hustle and bustle of schools and trying to get all the content done doesn't always happen in a meaningful way.
Right. One of the things that you and I had talked about earlier is that Think Big really has the opportunity to support kids with learning differences, which I'll have to say, I never even really thought about it that way. But what have you seen and what's your take on that?
Well, and this is very personal to me because I had a family member who had an IEP growing up. And I would often hear from my mother, and I'm sure people share this experience, just talking about, well, what's the problem with my kid, opposed to what are all the amazing strengths that my kid has. Right now, we have a system where if you don't have those traditional skills, those things might not be honored. I think what Think Big for Kids does, it helps kids think about themselves in different ways by providing different pathways, right? Everyone thinks, oh, maybe I have to be a lawyer, I have to be a doctor, but and this is where I think the real power in it is the human beings that are there with us from the industries. They get to authentically speak to their journey and their story, and kids are very impressionable at this age. The more you expose them to alternative paths, the more they can imagine themselves, I think, in those paths. So I think it's been incredibly helpful as we continue to build out the mentorship program, maybe start to get to them even sooner in elementary school. I just think that is going to have an exponential impact for them.
That's great. To see that a child who learns differently and maybe has been made to feel like I can't be X or I can't do Y. Well, yes, you can. That's pretty cool.
Well, and a perfect example is the last people who came. They with the spaceship. They were from Cornell, and they went to Cornell, but they also told our students, I had a 1.8 GPA in high school, right? So there are always different ways. There are times you can get it together, but just hearing those different stories, I think, is empowering to them and helps inspire them to reach for higher.
Morrise, in your opinion, as an educator, what do you think are the biggest challenges facing kids today?
They're facing a lot of challenges, and I know they always get a bad rap for kids these days, but I think with technology, it's kind of changed the game in a lot of different ways. I think how technology incorporates itself into every aspect of life, how they've kind of fine-tuned it to make sure that we are satisfied when we're using it. I think that has a big impact on students. I also think quality of, and although I work with amazing educators, the reality is I think many buildings are under-resourced. I think teachers are not honored in the ways they should be, especially with pay. And the reality is, if you want to have good achievement in schools, you need to have the best, brightest, and most talented educators in those rooms. So again, if you're out there listening and you've ever thought about this, you're not loving your job out there right now, I cannot tell you about a more dynamic, heartwarming, and just exciting and joyful job that you can have. So I think they face a lot of challenges, but I also think they're going to be the ones that really help our society flourish and grow, and they're the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So Morrise, you brought a letter with you from one of your students. Do you mind reading it for us?
Yeah, absolutely. And I brought this letter because I think it really encapsulates all the reasons I love education, and bringing it back to the beginning, why this is more of a vocation and a mission for me. And I think when I read it to you, you will also see what I'm talking about. And this is from a student actually this year, and I'm not going to share her name, but I will read from the letter. So she said, "I'll be leaving Liberty soon and doing a homeschooling program at home for the rest of the school year. I want to stay in contact with you, so I'm putting my personal email at the bottom. I just want you to know that you're an amazing teacher and person in general. I've known you for less than a year, and you've already made my perspective on life change. And I imagine that many other students feel the same way. And I hope you find someone who inspires you like you inspire your students every day. And the AVID family that you created made a support system for some of the kids that just don't have one. You continue to be awesome every day. Also, you are the one who taught me to write this letter. Thank you for everything. Also, Josephine says hi." That's such a letter from a student, especially at the end. But I feel so lucky that I get to have anything close to this type of impact, even if it's just on one student.
Oh, what a gift.
Oh,
well,
absolutely.
and that just says so much about you and your impact.
Thank you.
If you could dispel a myth or a misconception that people might have about kids, and especially kids who are financially disadvantaged or come from challenging backgrounds, what would that be?
Gosh, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of those out there, right? Just that these kids can achieve and do anything, and I would even argue sometimes more than other students. And some of the conversations I have with them are, and also that what happens to these students is somehow a negative thing. I think sometimes, yes, it can be challenging, but these students are building a resilience. They're building a skill set that they can then turn around and help other people with who might not have had those experiences at a young age. And I've told students that, but I've also seen them do it. And sometimes, it's tough when you have to grow up a little bit early, but I've seen these kids so many times turn that around to be good friends, good mentors to others. So yeah, just dispelling the myth that they're victims, because I think also they have such a bright humanity and a bright path forward.
That's pretty special. If we don't have more teachers who are signing up after this podcast, I don't know what it'll be.
I hope so.
Last question for you. What is one thing a person can do to help a kid in need?
Join the teaching profession.
There you go.
Well, and I would also say just kids take a lot of modeling in that you don't recognize. So anytime you're around a kid, just modeling how to be a present, connective human being is one of the most powerful things you can do. Modeling how to deal with conflicts, modeling how to deal with a setback. And it's not so much, and we probably all know this, telling kids stuff is only going to go so far. I think what is really powerful is when you reflect on yourself, you try to embody the things that you're telling those students, and you just show them how to do it.
That's pretty special. Well, it's great to chat with you. And thank you for all you're doing. It's clear that, as I mentioned, you have a heart for service, and the students at Liberty Middle are very fortunate to have you. And we also really appreciate your support of Think Big for Kids. And we look forward to working with you as we go into the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an amazing partnership with Think Big. I can't wait to collaborate with them more for the benefit of our students.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thank you, Mr. Q.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode. Thank you so much.
Thanks for spending your time with Think Bigger Voices. Visit thinkbigforkids.org/podcast to see more episodes, follow our journey, and stay connected.